All right, guys. Welcome to Wide Awake News Radio. I am your host, Charlie McGrath, 25th day of June, Tuesday. I want to invite everybody, if you're not in the chat room right now, to go over to WideAwakeNews.com, click on the Wide Awake Radio microphone, and join us in chat. We have Michael Snyder of the Economic the Economic Collapse blog.com. He's joining us here in just a minute. His new book is out. I'm excited to talk to him about it. The Beginning of the End is the title of it, and man, oh man, Michael, you really couldn't pick a better title. Looking at the headlines of every day is something new. Now, on the back of the NSA, the back of the IRS scandals, the back of one scandal after another, we have the bond bubble, which seems to be bursting. And today, we have the president coming out, talking once again about using the power of executive order in order to cut emissions and save the planet from a global warming or climate gate or climate change. It just never seems to be ending. Everything seems to be at a very, very accelerated rate, and it's all going to a place that is very, very scary if you're paying attention and you're awake. Unfortunately, Michael, I think most people are not. The numbers are growing that are starting to realize something bad, something wicked is heading our way. But it's so hard to sit back and look at any one issue. Gary and I were talking about this last night. It's so hard to sit back and try to focus on all the bullets that are heading towards the people of this country, the people of this world, for that matter. There, at every single turn, no matter what degree you turn on the compass, you are facing a freight train or another, and it just depends on the day which one seems the worst. Michael Snyder, the Economic I can't say it today. The Economic Collapse blog.com. Welcome to the back to the program.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. It's great to be back with you.
I can't say the name of your website, the Economic Collapse blog. For Pete's sake, how many times have I said that over the years? A million?
Oh, it's true. It's true. But, these things are becoming so timely because you talked about the bond bubble. And when most people hear about yields on bonds are going up, they say, what in the world does that have to do with me? Right. Unfortunately, it has everything to do with us. And hopefully we can get into that, because right now we're seeing things in the bond market that we haven't seen in 50 years. Things are moving so dramatically.
I definitely do want to get into that, but what I'm going to kick the program off with is the book, because you've talked about it for going on a year on the program. That you were working on it, and it would be done coming in the summer of this year. It was finished and published about a month ago. We haven't been able to have you on since then, so let's spend this segment at least talking about the beginning of the end. I like the title, and I didn't know the title until you released it, but I certainly like it. It's available at Amazon. I'll put a link right now into the chat room. Guys, Michael Snyder is one of, if not my favorite, writer on current events, period. Every single day I go to his website, which is the Economic Collapse blog, I got it out that time, .com, as well as the AmericanDream.com, and always very informative pieces. And I'm glad that you finally were able to put together this book. I haven't read it yet, but you can be rest assured that I'm going to read it. And I encourage everybody to go to the link I'm putting in chat at Amazon.com, or just go there and type in The Beginning of the End, Michael T. Snyder, and pick up a copy. It looks like it's pretty inexpensive too, $15.50. Is that right?
Yeah, price. For the paperback, and actually the Kindle version, I've dropped down to $3.99, so nobody has an excuse not to get it. Okay. So the online, the Kindle version is just $3.99. But yeah, I entitled it The Beginning of the End because I feel like that's what we're moving into, and it's a novel. I put it in a novel format because our society is addicted to entertainment, whether it's movies, television, video games, whatever. People love to be entertained. And so I wrote it for an audience that maybe people that won't sit down with you and I and have a half an hour discussion, or maybe they won't come and visit, our websites or listen to our radio programs, but you can hand them a book and say, hey, check out this novel. It's entertaining. People love to be entertained. And so what I've done is hopefully created a compelling, entertaining story, but throughout the book, I'm just hammering people with nuggets of truth about Big Brother, about the government spying, which is very timely because of this whole thing that has come out. And then also in the book, there's so much about derivatives, about what happens when interest rates go up, about the coming economic problems that I believe were happening and now we're starting to see unfold. So it's very, very timely, hitting on so many of the things that are happening right now. And I started working on this book over 6 months ago. So it's hopefully a very timely book, very interesting book, but also a book that you can give to people and help wake them up.
So as a novel, it's a story, right? And it has a central cast of characters, and it follows them through a period of time into collapse of some sort or another. I mean, you don't have to give it all away, but give us a little bit of the story.
Absolutely. It's a mystery/thriller set in the United States in the near future, and the main characters there's this ex CIA operative who gets kind of sucked into this secret intelligence agency that he didn't even know existed. There's this female financial reporter who's reporting on the economic collapse who kind of gets sucked into the story. And there's this prepper character who kind of takes this prepper to the extremes. So there's all these storylines which kind of merge into one. And it's a mystery, it's a thriller, and there's a lot of twists and turns in it. Throughout the book, there's economic collapse, there's natural disasters, there's all kinds of things and it ends up that my main characters are on the run from the government and they're employing all this Big Brother technology trying to find them. So hopefully people will be very entertained, but hopefully I'm also trying to communicate some very important things about our world, trying to integrate what I've learned in throughout the years in the writing I've done on my various websites, trying to integrate that into a comprehensive story.
Well, I want to kind of jump to the end of it and see if it has a happy ending, but I'm hopefully I can get a copy of that soon and read it, and then I can be able to determine that for myself. But you said it's a pretty substantial piece of work, like 400 pages or so.
Yeah, the print version is 443 pages long. And some people have written me. I just got an email today. Someone said I read it in 2 days. So apparently they really enjoyed it. But I don't know how anyone reads a book that long in 2 days. But
I have no idea. I just took you're up here, kind of in my neck of the woods in the Rocky Mountain West and Northwest, and I just took an 11-hour drive to Denver over the weekend. And to me, that I like books on tape, or I guess they're not on tape anymore. Books I can download to my phone. Because that's about the only way where I'm going to get a sitting and be able to digest an entire book of any kind of size in that kind of time frame. I can't imagine trying to sit there and read a 400+ page book in 2 days.
Yeah, and I guess I should warn people that it's a controversial book. Even though it's a novel, there are things in there which are going to upset just about everybody. So,
that's good.
Yeah, I've touched some nerves with this book, and I've got some people say they really love it. Other people express very negative opinions because I touched a nerve with that particular person. So, it's a book that is going to evoke emotions out of people. And
what was I don't want to harp on the negative too much, but Michael, I've been reading your work. Like I said, I haven't read the novel yet, but I've had you as a guest on the program at least a dozen times. You and I've spoke often, and I've read your work for years. I can't imagine what you would write that would get somebody to be so angry to send you an email. Unless you turned a new stylistic of writing in this book.
Well, no, well, it is a different kind of writing, but in terms of the material, I normally, for example, on the Economic Collapse blog, I focus very much on the economy.
Right.
But in this novel, I push a little more into some things such as the New World Order, the Illuminati. I push a little bit more in some different directions, which some people might find controversial. So,
well, that's good. It's like we were saying before the program. As long as you're ticking everybody off equally, you did something right. We're going to be back with Michael Snyder, author of The Beginning of the End, available on Amazon, and founder of the economiccolappseblog.com. We'll be right back to talk bond implosion with Michael Snyder. Hang tight. All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. About 60 folks in the chat. If you want to join in with questions for Michael Snyder or myself, please go to WideAwakeNews.com, click on the microphone or the tab that says Join Chat, and that'll take you into chat. If you want to watch us do this live, well, you can watch me do it live, but we have an image up there for Michael. You can go to the Justin TV feed that is available in the chat room as well. Again, I want to talk, or at least mention before we continue on, The Beginning of the End by Michael T. Snyder, available at Amazon.com. I'll put that link into the chat again right now. Guys, please support Michael and go get a copy of that book, even if this is a topic or this is the kind of information that you've sought out over the last several years following his website or this program, and you feel that you're awake. It certainly looks like it's going to be a great gift to give to somebody that you're trying to wake up. And a lot of us have family members and friends that still fall into that category. Even myself and Michael, I'm sure that even you have friends that you would like to see turn the corner and realize where we're headed.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I've given it out already to many family members, and some of them have actually read it already, and I've never had the chance to sit down and have extended conversations with them about different things. But they've already finished the book, and they enjoyed it, and they got so much information downloaded in the process, which I never would have been able to do probably just in a one-on-one conversation.
No, because most people, like you said at the top of the program, most people are so dialed in to infotainment. If it's not, if it's something that doesn't hold their imagination for a minute, they're gone. They're right down the road to the next. If it's news. Look, this is the way that the people of this nation and the world have been conditioned. If it falls into the category of news, it's truly supposed to be about 3 or 4 minutes long, and then you move on to the next piece of so-called news. And that's it. If it goes outside of that, or if it takes any more thinking than that, then it's supposed to fall in the category of entertainment. So I think you were right on the money with wrapping this truth in an entertaining story.
Yeah, and we've seen, whether it's 1984 by George Orwell or, many of these novels throughout history, they've been very popular and entertaining, but they've also had a dramatic impact in terms of on society and saying something about the real world. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, say something, not just entertain people, but say something significant about our world.
Well, I like I said, I look forward to reading Amazon.com, The Beginning and the End, Michael T. Snyder. All right, and I'll talk about we'll get at least one more plug at the end of the program in here, because I want this thing to be successful. I know how hard you worked on this. I want to get into a little bit. You put out an article today about the bond market. The trigger has been pulled, and things are freaking out in the markets, and the trajectory looks a little bit scary. Now, I want to get into this, but I also want to preface this with, we certainly could be looking at, and this is something I've learned over the last couple of years, every time there is a panic over the last several years, it has been, I believe, used by the powers that be, the Wall Street, the big Wall Street firms, the big power brokers on Wall Street in Washington, D.C., to demonstrate their ability to control the economy. And so we have a massive sell-off for a few days, a massive amount of fear and panic in the markets, and then the Fed will step in, or maybe a big-time CEO will step up and give someone words of hope or optimism, and things will turn around. We see the Fed doing it time and time again, QE 1, 2, 3, open-ended quantitative easing, and they paint themselves to be the gods of the modern age just by being able to utter a few words, and the economy's turned the corner. And the end result of that is we have this feeling of, I don't want to say recovery, but we have this feeling that they have it under control and that things are starting to move the right direction. So what do we have? We have Bernanke coming out talking about he's going to have to potentially draw down some of this debt purchasing. And this ought to show everybody exactly who is running the program. It doesn't matter how many jobs there are out there. It doesn't matter what the true supply and demand of this economy is. It only matters what Bernanke says. It's a conversation, again, Gary and I had last night. If the only people that are truly affected are the people that work for the government. Well, it seems to me, Michael Snyder, everybody who trades in Federal Reserve notes at this point in time works for the government because they have so much control over what happens with this economy. Ben Bernanke utters a word, the markets go up. He utters a different word, they freak out for a week. So your article, the trigger has been pulled and the slaughter of bonds have begun. Could this be a head fake just to reestablish, reaffirm that the true power in this economy lies in the hands of a very select few? Or do you really see this as being the beginning of the end of the bond market, which is tantamount to beginning of the end of the illusion of recovery?
Well, I totally agree with you. You know, there have been head fakes in the past, and I agree with you that this definitely shows that the Federal Reserve has far more power over the economy and our financial system than anyone else does. You know, the markets hang on every word that Bernanke says. That's not true of Barack Obama or anyone else, so that's very true. Now, unfortunately, I believe, however, I'm convinced, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I could be wrong, but I'm convinced that this is not a head fake this time. I believe that not only the Federal Reserve, but central banks all over the world are going to start tapering their intervention in the financial markets, in the bond markets. And why do I say that? Well, one big reason is what we've just learned from the Bank for International Settlements. Now, for those who are not familiar with this, the Bank for International Settlements is essentially the central bank of central banks. Is based in Basel, Switzerland, and 58 global central banks, including the U.S. Federal Reserve, belong to it.
All right, hold on a sec, Michael. I went a little long in that segment talking, so we're gonna pick it up with the Bank of International Settlements and why you believe this is not a head fake. And guys, this is a pretty big deal because Michael's usually pretty conservative when it comes to the end of this financial system. At least he has been over the last couple of years. So I can't wait to hear you break this down for us. We'll be back with Michael Snyder in just a few minutes. Hang tight. Just made it. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Michael Snyder, founder of the Economic Collapse blog and author of The Beginning of the End. Basel, we were talking about Basel, the Bank of International Settlements. We're talking about your latest article talking about the trigger has been pulled on the bond market and how you believe that this potentially could be a true signal of the beginning of the end. How apropos. Go ahead.
Yeah, every 2 months, the central bankers of the world, Ben Bernanke, the heads of 57 other global central banks, they converge on Basel, Switzerland for what's called a global economy meeting. Now, most Americans have never even heard of this. Right. But at those meetings, decisions are made which affect all of us, every person on the planet. Now, the Bank for International Settlements just came out with its annual report. In that annual report, it said that central banks, quote, cannot do more without compounding the risks they have already created, unquote. And in that report, the Bank for International Settlements made it clear that they believe that it is time for central banks to stop buying bonds and intervening in the markets. And then to reinforce that point, the general manager for the Bank of International Settlements, he came out and made a speech entitled "Making the Most of Borrowed Time," in which he said basically the exact same thing. He said monetary policy has done its part. So the Bank of International Settlements is sending a very strong message that they're going to try to let the financial markets of the world get back to normal. It's time to stop the intervention. It's caused a lot of problems. And it's time for the Federal Reserve and other central banks to back off. So that's telling people that the era of easy money, of super low interest rates is coming to an end. And as a result of what Ben Bernanke said, and then the BIS reinforcing that point very firmly, the markets are going haywire, and we're seeing bond yields absolutely shoot through the roof.
But even with that shooting through the roof, as it were, of the bond markets, they're still really, really low in historical levels. But as you point out in this article, they're shooting up very rapidly. What is it? First of all, in your opinion, and I value your opinion because of your experience in the world of finance, who sways power, in the Bank of International Settlements, and is it politically feasible for them to do this, or do they just not care and they're going to do it because all of their the private banks that make up the ownership of these global central banks have managed to shift all of their burden onto the people of the world through sovereign debt, and they just don't care. They're going to let the chips fall where they may. And when we see a mass panic and people losing everything, they'll be able to swoop in and pick it up for nothing. Or do you think we will see political pressure to continue to push this low interest rate, this near zero interest rate policy, in order to fan growth for growth's sake?
Well, the Bank for International Settlements is actually not accountable to any government in the world. They're kind of at the top of the financial pyramid. You know, a lot of people think of the Federal Reserve as the apex, but the Bank for International Settlements is really above the Federal Reserve and above all the central banks. So there's not.
But wouldn't you get into a situation of nationalism, though? I mean, couldn't you? The Bank of International Settlements is an organization. It's not infallible, and it's certainly, you could see nations, especially nations inside of Europe, who are further down the road to depression, or the road of depression, than the United States, arguably. You could see nations stepping away from these institutions and these organizations, even these tightly knitted affiliations, in order to prevent rioting and revolution in their countries.
Well, it may eventually come to that. Who's to say? And certainly there'll be a whole lot of people that'll be very angry as things start crumbling. And who knows when it could be that they want to set up another crisis so they can swoop in as our saviors, or who knows what their motives are. But the fact that they're backing off right now has got investors kind of really, really spooked. And a lot of people, well, what do rising bond yields mean? Well, it means the federal government's going to have to spend more to borrow money. In fact, if the average rate of interest on government debt goes up to just 6%, the federal government will have to pay out $1 trillion a year just in interest on the national debt. But that's not the biggest problem of rising bond yields. We've also got state and local governments that'll have to pay more to borrow money, but that's not the biggest problem either. It's also being projected that if U.S. bond yields rise by an average of 3 percentage points across the spectrum, it will cause bond investors to lose $1 trillion. But that's not the biggest problem either with rising bond yields.
You keep stacking up the problems, Michael Snyder. Go ahead.
Yeah. And we've also got the problem with, for example, junk bonds are absolutely being hammered right now, and that's going to make it, raise borrowing costs for businesses. So they're not going to be able to hire as many people. It's going to cause economic activity to slow down. But that's not the biggest problem either. The biggest problem with rising bond yields potentially is with the $441 trillion worth of interest rate derivatives that are sitting out there.
That's conservative.
Well, that's not the total pile of derivatives. The total derivatives market is larger than that. But interest rate derivatives, specifically derivatives which are tied to interest rate levels, make up the biggest chunk of that. So, and this number, the $441 trillion, comes directly from the Bank for International Settlements. But there's right now $441 trillion of bets that are made on interest rate levels. And normally that doesn't cause a problem because interest rate levels move very slowly, and the big financial institutions that are engaged in trading these interest rate derivatives use very sophisticated financial models. Unfortunately, all financial models are based on human assumptions. And right now what we're seeing in the bond market, we're seeing things that have not happened in 50 years. And we're seeing such violent movement that is not really accounted for by these models. And so if we start seeing, it's kind of like if a life insurance company went out and wrote tons of life insurance policies and everyone died at once, it would bankrupt the life insurance company. That's kind of, if bond yields keep soaring, that's what we could see. And we could see major financial institutions start to go down like dominoes.
Boy, and we know that it just takes one. It just takes one of these two bigs to jeopardize. You look at somebody like J.P. Morgan with its derivative exposure. One company like that goes under, and the whole thing. You're right. It's a domino effect, and it goes one step further to show how dominant the central banking cabal is over this planet. When you talk about, they look at models, and models are always predicated, even in insurance. The actuarial tables are always predicated on what's happened in the past. But as you pointed out, this is uncharted territory. This is things that haven't happened before. And if they have, it's been, decades and decades. So nothing is normal. Nothing is organic, if you will. The principles of free market capitalism no longer exist. Everything is because of a punch bowl that's been put into the hands of people who want to do nothing but gamble. And they gambled, they failed, and we gave them more, and they've gambled again. And when this fails, there'll be no more bailing out. But again, this goes to my point that I think that's been the ultimate plan, is get the failure put squarely on the back of the people of the world, and then let it all come crashing down. And then the institutions and individuals who brought us here, well, they're sitting pretty on a pile of cash, while the rest of us are sitting here watching our assets fall through the floor and watching economies crumble. Michael, there was a question in chat. Bonnie reposted in there for me, and it had to do with the law of diminishing returns. Something we've talked about quite a bit. Will we see diminishing returns even if the central banks come out and say, okay, we're going to continue quantitative easing, which Bernanke kind of tried to, or I should say, Federal Reserve spokesman tried to elicit some hope today, and we saw a little bit of pop in the markets. I think 100 points up on the Dow, but it is a matter of diminishing return. The more they pump out, the less effect it has. Correct?
Oh, absolutely, and we've seen that. When quantitative easing was originally announced, it had a large effect, and then subsequently, it's not been quite as much. But I don't think that's the direction they're going to go. I think that they want to go this other direction, and it could be a situation where we have a problem reaction solution where they try to create order out of chaos, where they're going to let things crumble and where they can rebuild in the image that they want it to be rebuilt in. I don't know. But what I do know is that we could be potentially facing a crisis far worse than anything we saw in 2008. Back in 2008, credit default swaps got very famous. Everyone learned all about those. They caused such a huge problem. Well, there's only about $25 trillion of credit default swaps sitting out there. Remember, there are 441 trillion interest rate derivatives sitting out there. So we're talking about a potentially much larger problem.
And I want to thank Meat and Buddy for that question. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how fast this could spiral out of control. Like I said, Michael, you're usually pretty conservative as far as looking at the future and trying to anticipate how much time we have left in this current system. Let's break that down in the final segment. We'll be back with Michael Snyder, author of The Beginning of the End, available on Amazon.com right after this message. Final segment of Wide Awake News on this 25th day of June, Tuesday. I want to thank Gary Hendershot for getting back to work and providing the fancy scenery behind me. He's doing that with some of his technology down there. A lot of you wondered why we've had the green background in the videos for the last month. Well, I was prepping for when Gary was back because he's using, again, some of his high-tech toys to kind of dress up the program a little bit. Michael Snyder is our guest. He's the author of The Beginning of the End, available at Amazon. Michael, it's coming out, it's been out about a month, but your article today, I happen to agree with. I was trying to play devil's advocate a little bit there, talking about using it as another example of how they have everything under control when they come out to save the day by announcing that the interest rates are going to remain artificially low. If this is truly the trigger being pulled on the bond market, it is a massively huge deal. And it also means that any morning you could wake up and see the failure of a too-big-to-fail institution or a government or the quasi-collaboration of the two and see this whole thing go spinning out of control quick, fast, and in a hurry. Is that assessment accurate? I mean, this isn't going to be a drawdown. If this is truly the beginning and the end of the bond market, it could be something that happens in very short order, correctly? Is that correct? I mean,
oh, absolutely. When markets fall apart, they tend to do it a lot more rapidly than they rise and go in a positive direction. And so things can shift very, very rapidly. And we could be looking at a 2008 style crisis with tremendous fear, but this time we could have a situation with rapidly rising interest rates at the same time. And our entire economic system depends on credit, depends on debt. and it depends on businesses and corporations and governments being able to get money. And when you have tremendous fear coupled with rapidly rising interest rates, that could cause a tremendous credit crunch. At the same time, we see the problems in Europe escalating. Today it came out that they're saying now Italy may need a bailout within 6 months. Unemployment continues to rise over there. Meanwhile, over in China, the second largest economy on the planet, they're having problems with their shadow banking system. Their interest rates are rising. They're talking about a credit crunch in China. So it's not just the United States. All over the world, we're starting to see these rumblings. And I believe we have hit a turning point. I believe we have seen the stock market hit its high. I believe bond interest rates are now up from the lowest they have been. They're rapidly rising. And pretty much the only place they have to go is much higher. So I believe we've hit the turning point. Things are going to fall apart and things are going to progressively get worse to the extent that I believe a couple years from now, we're going to look back and it's going to be hard to recognize our country and how badly things have deteriorated over. I think and hopefully people remember this, by 2015, I think things are going to be very, very bad. Let's just put it that way.
No, I agree with you. And another question came in chat. And looks like it's from Mead again. Is Detroit the future of the USA? And I think that very well could be the future of the USA. But it isn't just Detroit that is in the midst of bankruptcy. Look at the coasts, and you'll see the left and the right coast cities are far overextended. They're in massive. In California, their debt load is bigger than most nations on this planet, and these are all things that are directly tied to what the interest rate of borrowing money is. And if this starts to take a turn upward, it isn't going to be slow. It's going to be fast, and when it does, it's going to mean that there's going to be a lot of pain realized immediately, right, Michael?
Oh, absolutely. Governments, state and local governments all over the country have been struggling. We've seen Detroit. They're saying, hey, they want those holding Detroit bonds to take a 90% haircut. They want those holding pensions to take a 90% haircut, or potentially even more. So Detroit's on the verge of bankruptcy. We've seen other bankruptcies already declared, and yet the cost of borrowing has been super low. If it rises, and it's rising right now, if it rises significantly, that's just going to could cause that wave of municipal defaults, which Meredith Whitney and others have been warning of in the past. Maybe she got her timing wrong, but that is going to come when interest rates go up. And in fact, we're already seeing the municipal bond market start to get rocked. In fact, on Monday alone, $331 million of municipal bonds that were supposed to be auctioned off and sold, they were postponed on Monday alone because of these problems. So that's something that could definitely rock communities from coast to coast.
Well, and you talk about Meredith Whitney and timing being off. I think the key there is if we would have just taken 2008 as what it was, which is the perfect opportunity to purge the system of what we call too big to fail, we'd be far down the road of true recovery right now. But Meredith Whitney, you, me, nobody else could have possibly predicted the insanity that would ensue after 2008, which is the complete suspension of free markets. Period. The complete suspension of free markets. The complete push towards a total tyrannical police state. A build out while this money, this debt was being just heaped onto the people, and this feeling of normalcy has been stoked. When all of this is going on, and there has been people crying in the woods, Meredith Whitney, yourself, and others that have been saying, look, this is eventually going to hit. And when it does, the most people are going to be sitting around thinking, well, everything's under control. And that's exactly where we're at. Most people think that we are under, maybe not in full-fledged recovery, but we're on the right path. But nothing could be farther from the truth. We've been playing rob Peter to pay Paul for the last 5 years. And when it, look at our sovereign debt compared to when I began on YouTube. It's nearly doubled. The amount of debt that has been public and shadow is enormous, not just in the United States, but around the world. And this has all been done in the name of recovery. So when equilibrium is tried to be reset in these markets, or in the world of free markets, it's going to be devastating. And most people that were trying to warn of this, they could have never predicted the extraordinary actions that these central bankers were going to try to take on.
Absolutely. And what we're seeing right now, we have the biggest bond bubble in the history of the world, and it's gotten much larger over these last few years with all this quantitative easing and everything else. So it's the biggest bond bubble and the biggest debt bubble we've ever seen in the history of the world. And when it implodes, it's going to be disastrous. And, we should probably talk about this before we go. When things fall apart, people can't get jobs, people lose their homes, and, there's going to be civil unrest, there's going to be protests. And when that happens, the governments around the world, particularly here in the West, they're ready to crack down, and they're watching everything that we do. In fact, those listening to this program should Google Tempora, Tempora. It's this British government program where they've tapped directly into the cables that carry all of our phone calls, all of our internet traffic. They're recording it all, and then they're giving it to the NSA. So not only is the NSA spying on us, the British are spying on us too, gathering everything that goes through the cables that carry our electronic traffic and giving it over to the NSA. So basically nothing that you do on the internet, none of your phone calls, none of that is private. They know everything that you're doing.
Yeah, and why would that be? I mean, that, it's sold because of the battle against terrorism, but reality points out that you're more likely to be hit by lightning than killed by a terrorist. So why on earth are they gathering all this intelligence? Why are they building out this security apparatus, like you said, not just here in the United States, but in the West in general, the worldwide in general? And it has to be that they know something is coming that is going to be devastating, and they're going to have civil unrest and pushback. I mean, it's simple if you look at it from that aspect, that we've been set up, the planet as a whole has been set up. It's been overloaded with $1 quadrillion in derivatives, as you pointed out, $441 billion in interest derivatives alone. When, and not if, but when that all comes crashing down, you look at the unrest and protests we have around the world right now, and we're under the umbrella of recovery. Can you imagine what it's going to look like when the wheels come off the bus? It's not going to be a pretty picture, is it?
It's not at all. And what gets me about the spying program is that in the United States, we're so hypocritical because we hold ourselves up as an example to everyone else on the planet. We say, hey, we're the great defenders of liberty and freedom, but we're openly admitting to you that we're going to intercept all of your phone calls, all of your internet activity. We're going to spy on you as much as we possibly can and keep all of that data and information forever. Oh, but we're your friends, and we're going to defend your liberty and freedom and be a shining example for, it doesn't mesh. It doesn't come together.
Not at all. You mentioned Orwell at the beginning of the program, and it is the quintessential Orwellian state. You have your 2 minutes of hate every day when they flash Michael Snowden on the or Bradley Manning or any of these other folks on your television. You're supposed to grind your teeth and hate these people, and then love the state for spying on you. It is Orwellian to the extreme and getting worse every day.
Yeah, and our reputation with the rest of the world is dropping by the minute because the rest of the world is looking at us with disgust. Yeah. If you read the foreign press, there has been some outrage in this country, but around the world they're far more outraged about this. And
absolutely.
And one day, the United States is going to need some friends, and when that day comes, they might. We might look around and say, hey, we don't have many friends left. We alienated everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly accusing other states of spying and hacking. And when Carlie comes out yesterday talking about China, we will not tolerate this. We will not accept their answer. We have leadership, so-called leadership, acting as if they're the teachers and everybody else is sitting here in romper room just waiting for them to issue dictates. And all of that will come home to roost. And so will this police state mentality. There will eventually be, it won't be until the true crisis hits and people realize the condition, but there will be pushback. You can be rest assured that it is coming. The Beginning of the End is the name of the book. Michael Snyder is the author of it. Please go to Amazon. I'll put the link in the chat one more time. Amazon.com. The Beginning of the End. Make sure you type in that as well as Michael Snyder, and you'll get to the right page. Pick up a copy of his book. Read it. Give it to your friend. Give it to a loved one. His website is theeconomiccollapseblog.com. Michael Snyder, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. We'll talk to you again in a month or so. Guys, please stay tuned for Jeffrance because he is coming up next. Tomorrow night is Wednesday, so we will have Woody O'Brien. He will be hosting Wide Awake News Radio tomorrow night. So please tune in and support him. Get into the chat room, 6 o'clock West, 9 o'clock East. All right. Enjoy Jeff. He's coming up next. Have a good night. Peace.